19 years ago, the historic St. Raphael's Cathedral in downtown Madison burned to the ground. A 41-year-old man was later sentenced to 15 years in prison for committing arson. Now, all these years later, News 3 Now is rewinding back to that fateful day. The first video of the flames was shot by News 3 shortly before 7 a.m. on Monday, March 14th. What was called a 3-alarm fire by Madison Fire came with the fear of the steeple collapsing on top of first responders. It was only in November of the previous year when the spire on top was replaced. Reporter Linda Agart shared what we knew by day's end.
The flames were just pouring out. So sad. I've been here since about 6 o'clock this morning, and just seeing the number of people coming up, so emotional, tears streaming down their cheeks when you think of all the memories that took place in this beautiful edifice.
People of all backgrounds shared the shock, staring in disbelief at the scene. This morning, St. Raphael Cathedral and 150 years of history and tradition went up in smoke and flames. Flames so fierce, firefighters had to battle the blaze from ladder trucks, blasting in water from every direction, including an evacuated county parking ramp. Part of the battle centered on gaining control of the church's famous steeple. The 40-ton, 100-foot spire also was filled with fire and thick smoke.
And now the fire department's doing everything they can to try to save the steeple. They're very concerned it's going to come down.
It was eventually stabilized, and structural engineers gave firefighters the go-ahead to go inside once again. But from high above the scene, it was clear most everything was already in ruins. What was left of the massive roof was now sitting on the sanctuary floor.
It's a very sad day for Madison. This building was 150 years old. We're about to celebrate our sesquicentennial as a city. The building's actually 2 years older than the city.
So really sad to see such a structure lost in this way.
Soon a crane will take off what was just put on last November. The spire will be saved. Beyond that, nothing is certain.
But our faith is not built around buildings, it's built around Christ who rose, and so the whole theme of Easter is light coming out of darkness, and so we'll look forward and see what we can do.
Linda Agart reporting. St. Rafe's, as many Madisonians called it, was built in 1854 and played host to hundreds of weddings, baptisms, and funerals. When it was first designed, it served as one of the defining features of the Madison cityscape. In fact, it was once the city's tallest building. Reporter Joel Despain brought us this look at the history of St. Rafe's.
Wisconsin was not yet a state, and so it was Territorial Governor J.D. Doty who donated the land so large numbers of immigrants escaping the potato famine back home could build a magnificent cathedral for a staggering price tag of $30,000.
That was the church for the Irish in the 4th Ward. It was blue collar, large families.
An architectural historian once said, if you want to know what's important to any people at a given time, look at what the biggest buildings are.
Until the new state capitol was built in the 20s, St. Rafe's was Madison's tallest landmark, a major defining feature of our cityscape. It served as the backdrop to Grover Cleveland's visit and so many other historical events, including Jim Connor's birth.
My grandparents were involved in the church, and my parents were, and all of us, my parents went to grade school there at St. Raphael's, and all of us kids, there's 5 siblings, we all went there. We were all baptized in that church.
Until Madison's ethnic neighborhoods were wiped out in the 1950s, St. Rafe's was not only the religious but the social hub of the 4th District. As is his routine, James Connors rode his bicycle past his boyhood church on his way to work this morning.
The feeling was one of, a certain amount of emptiness and sadness, of course.
Architectural historian James Drager tells News 3 he sees Madison's historic Isthmus churches as a pearl necklace around the Capitol, and he says we've just lost an important jewel.
Now it's a footnote in history, and it's photographs and old renderings like this that help us to remember it.
It was kind of like, an anchor for this part of town, and now it's gone.
Joel Despain reporting. Following the initial shock of losing the iconic landmark, the question moved to the building's future. Then Bishop Robert Merlino told reporters the diocese would take it one day at a time, waiting to evaluate the condition of the building, all before saying the diocese couldn't rule anything in or out.
So many people in the community have commented to me how grateful they were for the new steeple. And I know that beyond those of our own Catholic faith, the St. Raphael Cathedral is much appreciated in the community, and in all of the deliberations, I will not lose sight of that.
Morlino was correct in saying that Madisonians, regardless of their faith, appreciated the cathedral. Just one day after the fire, News 3 returned to find people staring in awe of the rubble.
For many, it appeared to be a pilgrimage of sorts. They just had to see it for themselves, the clock stopping sadness.
So many good things have happened in that cathedral. And so I just feel sad, and I don't know what will be happening after this.
What's happening is crews are securing the bells of the copper-coated spire so that they will not fall, so that firefighters may enter the rubble field.
Monsieur Swain asked us to go in and look for specific items, and our fire crews are in there looking for those items right now.
My daughters were in tears about this.
They weren't alone.
Well, the good Lord was looking out for us anyway. Nobody got hurt.
Don Rogers tells the priest he's been a parishioner here for 75 years. His grandmother was baptized in the cathedral in 1877, his granddaughters in 2002.
A lot of love in the building.
Just so many memories that you don't like to lose.
Some have just been saved. Now arson investigators will begin the meticulous, time-intensive task of finding the fire's origin and hopefully its cause. Then structural engineers will determine if the 3-foot wide walls and the foundation on which they were laid by hand will support a new cathedral if the church decides to rebuild.
What is your hope?
Well, the heart says we ought to, but we'll see.
I just hope they can save it.
I would love to say to you today that the church has decided to rebuild, but I don't have that authority. It's only my wish.
Emotionally and in my heart would like to see a cathedral here again.
See it rise up from the ashes.
The cross up there, it makes me really, really pleased. It's, I guess, a sign of hope.
Many speculated on the cause. With hindsight, we know now it was an arsonist who was seeking shelter. Digging through the rubble, as it turns out, was a tall order to find the ultimate cause. Here again, Joel Despain.
Days after battling intense flames, firefighters are back at the St. Raphael Cathedral telling detectives all they can remember.
The type of situation that they encountered putting out the fire is important to us as to how the fire traveled and where it started.
One eyewitness tells News 3 he could see flames initially shooting out of the newly renovated spire. That may explain why efforts are focused nowhere else in the church. Since News 3 first started monitoring the investigation, the choir loft has been meticulously cleared off. The organ is now being looked at, and you can see flames clearly shot out of latticework housing organ pipes in the southwest corner. Above this area is where recent electrical work would have been done in connection with the $1 million spire improvement project. The lead investigator tells News 3 federal, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms agents and state arson investigators are here basically for manpower.
Because it's shovel by shovel of debris out of there to get to where we're going, and then we finally get down to actual whisk broom brushing to remove debris and get a look at all the stuff we're looking for.
It's almost like archaeology in a sense.
It is. It's fire investigation has been compared to archaeological digs.
The goal is to get the area of origin almost back to how it looked before flames broke out, then analyze burn patterns to determine, among other things, whether the blaze was arson or electrical or something else. Some items may be taken elsewhere for analysis.
Going well. We're making real good progress. We're down to where we almost want to be, and hopefully wrap up the scene work by the end of the week.
But for now, they're continuing to dig for clues that may help the community deal with the grief. Joel Despain, WISC News 3.
It was just 24 hours after the fire when a man identified as a transient called police from an East Side grocery store, telling investigators he was the one who started the blaze. Months later, in August, William Connell took the stand in Dane County Court, asking the judge to declare him competent. Here's reporter Jessica Arp.
I believe I'm competent to proceed to trial, sir.
The massive fire destroyed historic St. Raphael's Cathedral in downtown Madison. Today, the man accused of setting it took the stand in his own defense.
Do you want the court to find you competent today?
I would certainly like that.
Connell has been evaluated for competency 3 times, and this most recent report is the first time he's been found incompetent to stand trial.
He has difficulty reasoning, making judgments, and making decisions which will interfere with his ability to help his attorney.
Psychologist Michael Spearer said today he believes Connell suffers from paranoid schizophrenia, making him delusional. Connell was asked today to tell the judge why he was competent, and he couldn't.
If I was the judge in this case, I'd find myself guilty of all 3 charges.
He was also asked to answer questions about court proceedings, such as how does a defense attorney defend someone?
It requires quite an extensive background in law, and I'm sure many years of hard work and schooling, and something I failed to gain for myself.
I think he would like to see this whole matter resolved and believes that going ahead now would facilitate that. But I don't think he recognizes what his impairment would do to his ability to provide help to his attorney.
Connell was eventually found guilty and sentenced to 15 years in prison, followed by 15 years of close supervision. In the years immediately following the burning of St. Raphael's, questions arose about what would become of the cathedral parish and site. A cathedral is the mother church of a diocese, and Madison was going without one. Bishop Morlino again went to the press to assert the need to come up with a plan to either rebuild or replace.
There is a diocese of Madison, and if there is a bishop of Madison, and in both of those cases there has to be a cathedral church of the Diocese of Madison.
The diocese eventually decided on tearing down St. Rafe's, but not before some public outcry to save it. Here's Maria Guerrero.
It is Madison, so to take it down is taking away very important, right in the heart, very important part of the city.
With the demolition of St. Raphael's Cathedral already underway, a movement to save the building is too.
By knocking down your finest old buildings is absolutely absurd.
From artists, former parishioners,
My parents, Raymond and Mary Kay Vasquez, were married here by Monsignor Kinney.
to cultural preservationists.
It really is a marvelous building, and my first recommendation is leave it alone.
This group is calling for the Madison Diocese to stop the deconstruction of the 150-year-old building.
Absolutely is salvageable. We want what's left to be salvaged and to be reincorporated into a new church.
The decision to do what we were going to do was taken in full, with full awareness of not only the historic significance, but even the greater significance to ourselves.
Monsignor Kevin Holmes knows the group applied to make the building a Madison landmark with a decision coming August 18th, but he says construction plans will go on as planned.
As I say, I don't know if anything is going to happen tomorrow. I don't keep that closely on top of it, but I am sure that our timeline would be substantially before August 18th. That would be
Meaning it would be demolished by
I would think so, unless we run into some difficulty.
This is an irreplaceable landmark.
Members say their fight will go on.
What I'm going to do is whatever I need to do to save this church.
You know, it is very difficult to make everyone happy all of the time.
Maria Guerrero, WISC News 3.
The building would eventually come down, the site becoming a park featuring a Way of the Cross. In 2016, it saw a battle over the property's tax exemption status, which current Bishop Hines says is still ongoing. There isn't much of any sign these days of the building that once stood proudly on West Main Street. However, one piece of St. Raphael's lives on. Jamie Paris found out in 2019 that part of the spire would be saved as art.
Today I went and spoke with a man about how he plans to both dismantle history and save it.
You can still find that story online at channel3000.com. And that brings us to now, 19 years later, where this past January, the diocese finally announced their intentions to renovate St. Bernard's Church on Atwood Avenue to transform it into the new diocese cathedral. News 3 Now was there, as we have been throughout this past 19 years, as Bishop Donald Hines shared the news.
This is a big deal.
Bishop Donald Hines showing off a gutted St. Bernard's Church to media members Wednesday afternoon. He says the process to name the new cathedral site is rare amongst dioceses.
This decision is a blessing for all of us Catholics throughout our 11 counties, for we have not had a cathedral for 19 years. A Catholic cathedral is the church of the bishop, who as the successor of the apostles serves and gathers the local church. And so the cathedral is the home for all of us who live and share our relationship with the Lord in the Catholic family.
St. Bernard's has stood on Atwood Avenue since the 1920s. Hines says while it's not a new building, like was once thought to be a possibility, it fits within a diocese-wide strategic plan to be more resourceful.
And for our people, that really seemed to make sense. And in our consultation with different folks throughout the diocese, that really was the idea that was embraced.
Hine went on to say Wednesday's announcement comes at the right time, with all the pieces seemingly coming into place at the same time. The renovation of St. Bernard's is expected to cost tens of millions of dollars. We hope you've enjoyed this exclusive Channel3000.com look back covering the cathedral. Remember, you can always find more news anytime online at Channel3000.com. I'm Kyle Pazorski, News 3 Now.